Let me show you a technique for sketching that has built my confidence in how I draw, and that's actually a really fun process. I'm only using 2 art supplies here to take my sketches from this before and after, and I found this approach to feel so good that I now incorporate sketching in my practice a lot more than I used to. Feel free to grab your sketchbook and sketch alongside me. I'll be chatting through my technique throughout, and here I'm using my Leuchtturm sketchbook, which I love because of the square shape. The 2 sketching supplies I use for this technique is a really light pastel colour marker and then a colour pencil in the same colour family as the marker but a darker shade. I've used a variety of colours in this spread, but you can just stick to the one colour. Swatch out your markers so you can see how the colours react to the paper and you can see what the colours are too. And the first step in this technique is laying down your marker sketch. You're going to look at your reference and just follow the shapes you see. You don't want to worry about perfection. This is why I use a light colour marker. Because it's a marker, I have to commit to the lines I make because I can't erase them. But because it's a light colour, it helps me map out the basic shapes and not worry so much about making mistakes because, as you'll see, the marker is going to be our guiding layer. The first marker layer is helping me break the fear of the blank page. I feel like I'm observing my photo in a macro way. I'm not going in really quickly with the details, which is something I can fall into when I sketch, and it's best to zoom out and start with the basic shapes of the subject when sketching. So this first marker layer really helps me do that. I continue to build until I feel like the main shapes and shadows are blocked in. This first layer isn't meant to look pretty, it's really just that guiding layer. And then once that's done, it's in the perfect place to begin rendering the sketch fully. So for the next step, the rendering, you want to make sure that your colour pencil is really nice and sharpened and begin to lay down the main lines. My priority with this is to be confident in each line that I put down. The base layer of the marker helps guide these lines, so now I'm not just using my reference, but I'm also helping myself with that first marker layer. Here is where you can begin to play with your strokes, your pencil strokes. Varying the weight of the lines can really help you achieve a more dynamic look to your sketch, so making some of the lines thin and some of them heavier. You want to have that basic outline first of the subject to begin then shading it in. And I like to keep my lines pretty straight because I like the look of it, and it also helps with accuracy when drawing, but I'll explain a bit more about that in a second. Now, just a little note that you are seeing edited footage, obviously, which means that I cut out all the pauses, and I actually pause a lot more than what it seems like in this footage, which is totally normal as I'm warming up with this sketch, and as I progress through the spread, I get a lot quicker with my decision making. So just be kind to yourself if you do take a bit longer. It's totally normal, and you'll see as you warm up, it gets quicker. Once I have the basic outline of my subject, I begin shading it in. It's fun to play with the direction of the shading. For this sketch, I only went in a vertical up or down direction, which gives a certain look. You don't have to do this, but it's fun to see what works with each subject and also just your style. To get the darkest areas in the sketch, I build up slowly, so trying to layer evenly but adding more layers to areas that are darker. And this slower approach will help you with understanding the different values in your subject, so how light or how dark you need to go. If you were to go in quickly with the darkest value in an area, you may find that you've gone too dark because there is another area that requires you to go even darker. So for example, the darkest areas on this goose in the reference are the eyes, the bottom of the beak, and the back of the legs. Those are the areas that I can use my darkest shade that my colour pencil will go when pressing down. If I were to go that dark in other areas, I would no longer preserve the correct range of values in this subject. And preserving the range of values is what makes your sketch look dimensional and alive. I really like that I kept the shading lines vertical. It's a different way to render, and I feel like it still gives that more sketch-like look, but there is more cleanness to the sketch, which is very in line with how I tend to approach my art. My style is a bit more contained and neat, so definitely play with this and see what suits your vibe more. In some of the other sketches on this page, I vary the rendering and it gives a different feeling to the sketch. So I go in different directions with the lines. It's really nice to explore different approaches and to understand what fits you best in this current moment. But also don't feel like you need to overthink this. Try a few different variations. So do a sketch with the vertical, then do one that's a bit more sketchy, like with lines going in different directions. Play around with it and see what feels best for you, and know that you can also change. So you could be doing this kind of sketching for months and then think, oh, actually, like this is speaking more to me. So I think it's just important to be reminded that you don't have to stick to one thing or one approach just because you feel like it fits you best in that moment. Then you don't have to commit to it for life. I just feel like there's always a lot of conversation about art style and finding something that works for you and being really committed to figuring out what looks best for your art style. And we're just like flowing and changing all the time, and our art styles change and flow as well, and we should feel empowered to allow that to happen in a very natural and organic way. So towards the end, I'm just going through and really darkening those areas that need to be darkened a bit more, and then pressing down with my colour pencil in this final layer to get the darkest values and adding any final touches. I really love how she turned out, and I just love this approach to sketching so much. It really has helped me pick up my sketchbook a lot more and be so happy with the process and the outcome. Another subject that I think is perfect for this technique is flowers. So I found flowers to be complicated to paint in the past, paint or draw, but they've quickly become my favorite subject. This sketching technique is perfect for them because sometimes it can be easy to be overwhelmed by the blank page, like where to begin your sketch, and flowers can feel quite complex. With starting with a marker and just the one wash of the same color, you simplify the process because you take away the need to decide on different colors or the tiny areas of the subject. You focus on the bigger basic shapes you are seeing in your reference. As I mentioned before, one thing I struggle with is going detailed too quickly and not staying with the bigger picture enough, and this technique has really helped me with having a good system of first staying with the bigger shapes and shadows and then building out the smaller details. And although flowers can seem like complicated subjects, when sketching them with this technique, it's actually really simplified my approach into distinguishing the bigger shapes quite easily and knowing where to start in general, not feeling overwhelmed. Another thing I think makes flowers a subject that can be more complex is the amount of curvature that there is in the subject of flowers. So the petals, the leaves, the stems, it's all a lot of curved lines. And I think when you are approaching a subject that has so much roundness, it's really good to simplify by doing straighter lines. The straight lines is going to really help with accuracy as well. If you struggle with getting an accurate depiction of what you're drawing, the straight lines are really going to help. I think having a lot of curves to deal with can really distract you and get you thinking a little too micro instead of macro, whereas simplifying with straight lines really helps to not get so lost in the details and in the curves. And having that base layer of the marker is gonna help guide you a lot more too. If you're looking for a good place to find copyright-free images, I use Pexels a lot for the images that you're seeing here on the screen. It's a source that I tend to go to in general for sketching practice, but an even better source is your own images and photos you take. A lot of the time when I'm out and about, I snap things around me that I think would make good sketch studies or paint studies. So definitely look through your camera roll because you probably have a ton of different things that could be used for this approach and practice. Another reason I love using markers, and specifically pastel color markers, is that you can layer the marker to create deeper values, which you will see me do in this sketch of these shoes. After doing my usual process of mapping out the alcohol marker layer and then adding the line drawing with as straight lines as possible, I go in with a marker again because I want to darken some of the areas even more. I feel like pastel color markers are so versatile and the best investment if you're gonna start a marker collection. I would definitely skip getting the brighter, more saturated colors, or at least leave those till last. I think the lighter colors are so much easier to work with and give you the option to layer to build deeper colors. I really love how this shoe study turned out because you can see that I was feeling a bit more warmed up here because the essence of the sketch is a bit looser while still retaining my style. As I mentioned, my art style is a bit more on the polished side, and although I sometimes try to fight this and try to explore looseness, I keep coming back to this more contained or structured look, but I'm not trying to fight that as much anymore and just kind of following my heart with how things come out. One thing I do though is that I analyze the brushstrokes or pencil marks that excite me in my art and see why. Question, why does it excite me? And the answer here is that I really like that the marker goes outside the pencil line in this sketch, while I still am able to retain that more clean, structured look. So I describe this as like being structured and polished with a pinch of playful, looser marks, and I really like how it looks. I think it's really important to kind of analyze your art as you're making it in a more objective way. Like, what are you drawn to and what are you not drawn to? So I definitely would really encourage you to look at what you create and be curious as to what you like about this certain piece, what you don't want to repeat, and this will inform your next creation. And this is essentially like the journey towards building your art style or language. It's kind of this analysis that is a bit more curious and non-judgmental. I'd love to hear about your sketching practice. Do you sketch alongside other types of art you create, other mediums? Do you like sketching and drawing? Drawing was definitely my first love, but when I started painting, I kind of left it to the side. So this technique has been really amazing for me to embrace so that I can do more sketching. Please let me know if you have any questions or if there is anything else I can deep dive into about sketching or this technique in another video. I'd love to hear about it. So I'll see you in my next video. Bye.